is Man Called. Last year on Valentine's Day, I made a video recommending 10 heartbreaking books to read because I wanted to do a themed recommendation video for Valentine's Day, but I don't normally read happy books. So I thought instead of cheering everybody up with romantic love stories, I would just break our heart. And this year, I think it will be fun if to make it a tradition of some sort and recommend 5 more. I know we're a little bit distant from Valentine's Day already, but we're still in February, so I think that still counts. It's funny, on February the 14th this year, I saw a loose flying Valentine's Day balloon across the street with no one near it. So I chased it down and put it in the trash can. So I'm really proud that I did my fair amount of contribution to the environment on this holiday. Anyhow, to be clear, I don't really want to break our hearts. I just happen to read a lot of sad stories. And these 5 books are all from the books that I read over the past 12 months. So you can also consider this video a summary of the saddest book that I read over the past year. The first book is one of my most recent 5-star rates, and it's also the one that reminds me of making this video because I stayed in the sorrow that it gave me for a long time after reading it. It was so sad and also satisfying, if that makes any sense to you. And the book is The Mercies by Kiran Hargrave. This is a historical fiction that will break your heart in a subtle way that you might not realize in the beginning. This book was based on a real historical event, and the story was set in the 1600s in Norway, where a fishing village one day had an accident and killed almost all the men. So the remaining villagers in the village was all women and younger men. So naturally, the women who's usually in charge of the domestic business need to learn how to fish and survive on themselves. A couple years later, a sinister man and his wife came to this village and started to stir the peacefulness that was established after the accident. In this book, we follow 2 narrations. One of them is a villager who doesn't really know the purpose of this man, and the other one is the wife of the sinister man who have never seen an independent and strong woman before she came to this village. This is a very gruesome and dark story, and what's chilling about it is because it is based on a historical event. When you connect that fact with the things that was happening in this book, you got the chill. But we're here for the heartbreak, and this is where I love this book so much. It gradually built up your emotional investment to the village, to the people, to the whole story. They came in different layers and angles where you don't expect them to. Not only the relationships was really beautiful and heartbreaking in this book, a lot of the other dynamics, including the political dynamic in the village, will give you an everlasting aftertaste too. This is definitely the kind of story that you will keep thinking after you read it. I know, at least I do. The second book I want to recommend is an even heavier one. It's The Bread That the Devil Need by Lisa Allen-Agostini. The book was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction last year, and I really enjoyed it when I read all the books on the shortlist. The protagonist, Alethea, is a Trinidadian woman who's managing a boutique in the port of Spain. She is fashionable, strong, independent, and feisty. But we quickly learned that Alethea was living with her abusive life partner, and as readers, we naturally will question the life choices that she made, and at that time, she witnessed a murder happened in front of her store. A woman was attacked and murdered by her jealous lover, and this event brought back all the trauma that Alethea had in her past, and we learned that why she just didn't leave her abusive relationship. And because of the subject matter, this book has a lot of scenes of violence, sexual assault, and abusive. The story was tragic to begin with, but the heartbroken part for the readers is when we come to realize that sometimes people are hurt enough and staying in an abusive relationship is safer and easier for them. This is a part that this book brutally presented in front of us and made us realize that sometimes the solution of getting out of there is easier said than done. It's just this shadows of powerlessness makes this book so heartbroken. I think if you like one of the previous shortlisted book for Women's Prize for Fiction called When I Hate You, The Portrait of the Writer as a Young Wife by Allen-Agostini, you will definitely like bread the devil need. Following, I have a book that I was happily surprised last year. I know that we're talking about heartbreaking books, so maybe not happily surprised, but positively surprised. The book is Sorrow and Bliss by Mac Mason. This is another book that was shortlisted on the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I would have not read it if it didn't make into the shortlist, because when I first read the first chapter and also the blurb, I feel like it's a middle-aged marital crisis book, which is just not my cup of tea. So the book is about a woman called Martha who always know that there's something wrong with her, but she didn't know what and why, and her husband thinks she's fine because he thinks that everybody has something, and he just kept going. And I don't know if it's me or the blurb, but after I said that just now, I felt like I lose interest to the book already once again. However, I was glad that I pushed through last year because it was such a wonderful read. Turned out this book was not about marital crisis at all, although you can argue that it's part of the book, but it's actually a book more about mental health, self-realization, acceptance, and healing. I cried so much while I was reading this book, especially the part when Martha's mom came into the play. I remember that I have to put this book down and go to the bathroom to wash my face because I was just crying that hard. Next, I have a series of books that I cannot stop raving about ever since I started to reading it, and I think you might guess what series it is, and I just put the first book in the series in this video, and the book is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, translated by Goldstein, and the series is called the Neapolitan Novel series. If you have heard me talking about this series before, you'll know that I kept saying that this book is beyond the friendship that was presented on the surface, so much more beyond. But I have to say that the friendship aspect is actually why I picked up this series, because I didn't know about the other part, and that's also the part that I want to focus on actually in this video. So the story begins with a writer who's also called Elena in her elderly years. One day she got a phone call from her friend Lila's son because Lila has gone missing. And getting this news, Elena started to write and jot down every details in their friendship ever since they were very little. Elena and Lila were best friends growing up, and they have such a tangled friendship. They thrive because of each other, they inspire each other, but they also kept pushing each other away. They have such different personalities. Lila was vibrant and intense, Elena was steady and strong. They inspire each other on an intellectual level, which I think is the most beautiful part of all the friendships. But in the beginning of the book, Elena already told us that she and Lila didn't talk for a very long time already. So I feel like for us, as readers, we already know the result, and seeing the friendship going into different directions is sometimes difficult. And there's also a personal levels here, because I used to have a friend who inspired me so much, and we supported each other in the most difficult and confusing times in our lives, but now we kind of drifted apart and disappeared in each other's life. So reading their friendship developing really bring back all the memories that I have. Frankly, that my story is not as dramatic as theirs, but it just felt so personal and close to me. Lastly, I want to talk about Man Called Umbra by Frederick Backman and translated by Jkjk. This book has been around for a very long time. It's also been adapted into at least two different movies, the Swedish version and the newly American version. I was very late on the boat. Last year I finally got to it, and I'm not surprised that I loved it so much. This is a story about a man called Uva, apparently, and he is very much into routines and rules. He lives alone after his wife passed away, and he goes to work every day. And one day his life was disturbed by some changes and also a new neighbor that moved into their community. There's so many things to love about this book, but the thing that moved me the most was actually not Uva's most current story, but his memories about his father and wife in retrospect. I was bawling when I read the part of the past, especially anything related to his wife. Uwe was not a very conversational man, and sometimes you can feel that he's struggling with his feelings and expressions, but you can feel the deep love that he has and affection he has to his wife. It's a great sorrow to think about how lonely he is after his wife passed away. And I watched the Swedish movie adaptation after reading this book, and not gonna lie, I had to watch it twice because the first time I just kept crying and I couldn't finish the movie. Compared to the other novels in this video, I would say that A Man Called Umbra was not as tragic or as sad. And you can even say that it's a book about the deepest love, which I wanted to end this video on, to give us some hope in a series of heartbreaks. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed these videos, and please let me know if you have read any of the books I mentioned or if you have heard of them. And also please let me know any of your recommendations of sad or romantic love stories down below. And thumbs up to this video if you liked it. I wish you a happy reading, stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in my next bookish video. Bye!